Hello, welcome back to 3D Drawing for Model Railway. In the last episode we created the main superstructure of the chassis here. Today's episode we're going to start to look at getting the two cabs on, so we've got a number 1 and a number 2 ends because the two cabs are slightly different sizes. Okay, so the first one I'm going to do is I'm going to create two components for the two cabs. I'm going to check the radio button to make sure we can back up to the top, right click, new component, and then we're going to name this number 1 cab and click on OK. I'm going to come back up to the top and I'm going to do exactly the same. Right click, new component, number 2 cab. Okay, so now we've got our two cab components. We can start making sure we're drawing the correct ones so that we know we're on the correct end of the unit as we draw it. Okay, so if we look at Paul's sketch, on the number 1 cab, we've got 98.5 inches from this end of the cab up until the end of the buffer beam here. And on the other end, we've got 71 inches, again from the end of the cab to the end of the buffer beam here. Okay, so we've got 71 and 98.5. They're the two measurements we're going to be working from. So if we look at using the number 1 cab first, okay, and we're going to draw it on this end of the model here. So we're going to have the canvas turned on for the side-on view and making sure that you've got your number 1 cab radio check button selected. I'm going to create a new sketch and I'm going to zoom in and we're going to sketch on the outside of the sole bar here, because if you look at the model, the cab is pretty much level with the outside of the sole bar. We'll create a sketch on there and then we're going to trace around the outside here. So we're going to start in this bottom corner. Again, there's no overhang really on the front here. We're going to start on the bottom corner. We're going to come up to the point of the cab, which is about there, and then we're going to come up to the next one. Try and make sure these blue lines are snapping. I try not to try and get that. Although, if we have a look at the side-on view, I don't know if that is potentially level. That point there and the 2 point, yeah, I think we might draw that as in line with the end of the buffer beam there. Okay, and then we'll draw this line down. It'll automatically snap to the bottom there. And then that, you can see how that's automatically closed off because it's changed colour. I'm going to define that angle, and then I'm going to define that angle, and that will close them two parts off. Okay, and then if we look at the plan, and we can have a look around to see, so we've got 35 inches. There's pretty much the halfway point. Looking at that, that point is at halfway point. Okay, so how we can change this then is if we define this edge. Okay, we know that this has to be 70 inches. And we know that from looking at the plan on Paul's sketch here. So we know that that's 75, and we've got 35 inches halfway point. So if we go into our calculator tool here, stick 70 inches, we know that it's 17748 is going to be the height of this line. So if we do what was the number there? 1778. 1778. And then divide that by 148 because we know that that's the end gauge we're working. So you can see how it's lifted it up slightly. Okay, what we need to do now is find the midpoint. I'm going to draw a line as a construction line across, and you can see that, you know, pretty much we've got that point spot on, maybe, by the looks of that. Okay, and what we can do is strain that point to that line. So that point now is at the midpoint. Okay, so all we've done there is turn this into a construction line and then added that onto the midpoint there. We can finish that. Change that back out of construction line there. Okay, so we're looking at the number one end, so we need to look at the measurement here. So we've got 98.5 inches as the defined measurement from the end of the buffer beam to the end of the cab here. Okay, so if we check this again here, so it's 50 plus 41 plus 7.5. So yeah, 98.5 inches. So again, we can jump into here, 98.5 is 2502, near enough. We can define the length. Nope. Let's escape that. We're going to draw a line along here, just to close that up, and then we can define that length. Sorry, what was that we said? 205.2. 205. Sorry, my head's gone. 205 to 2502. 2502 divided by 148. Okay, you can see what that's done to the length of that cab now. And that doesn't match the plan at all in the slightest, which is a little bit annoying, but you know, these are things that are sent to try us. And we do know that it is, yeah, you can see that it's pretty much in line with the center point of the axle here, and this one's, there's a center point there. So you can tell that that's not going to match the plan, and yeah, there you go, that's the center point of that axle. Let's just have a quick look. Yeah, one thing we might want to do, what we can do, if we finish that sketch a second, because I think this plan might be the wrong way around, looking at where that hump is, because that hump on the roof is above the engine. We go into the plan, edit canvas, and we can flip it round. Again, I don't think that's going to make much difference looking at that. Because the cab doesn't finish in the right place on there. So I'm just going to leave that as it was this way round. So we've got our profile now for our cab. We can extrude that. And we're going to extrude that across to the other side of the chassis here. Okay. Needs to be a new body. Make sure you're not joining into the chassis unless you really, really want to. But at this point, I would suggest that you don't, and we keep that as a new body. Okay, so we've now got that cab there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to copy that into component number 2 or cab number 2, and then change the length of it. So if we open that up, the body, select the body, right click, and then move copy. The first thing we're going to do is, oops, let's undo that. Create a copy first by ticking the checkbox there. Spinning it round. Let's put it in there. Let's spin it around, move it, and then we'll try and move it across into this component here. No, let's not do it that way. Let's go right click, copy, come down to here, select that, right click, paste. Now we've got the body within that one. That's what I'm after. Probably the cleaner way to do it. So we can spin that round 90 degrees. So it's now the correct way around. If we turn the canvas off, what we can then do is do point to point, select this corner here on the cab, and we know that that's got to match up to that corner on the chassis. Click on OK. Okay, so what we now need to do is work out define the length of this, because we know that this cab is completely different length to the original one. This one is 71 inches. So if we go back into here, do 71 inches, it's now going to be 103, 1803. So come back into Fusion. Okay, I'm going to turn off number 1 cab, I'm going to turn off the chassis. I'm going to create a sketch on the top of the cab. Okay, and we're going to do a rectangle. Okay, and we know the length was 1803 divided by 148. Okay, width is already going to be snapped to the other side. Okay, and what we've got left, this extra bit, we don't need, so we can just extrude that through to the bottom side, get rid of that, and we've now got a cab that's different length on this other end here. Okay, if we turn these back on, you can see we've got our 2 different length cabs, which is exactly what we're aiming to get. I was thinking, I'm wondering if it's worth going back a little bit in the CAD and just changing how we've done these cabs, like keeping what we've got, but just maybe adding things like the windows and detail like that. It will mean that this cutting off the end might be slightly different, but we can get around that. So if we let's go back in the history, let's turn the chassis off because we're not going to need that, and we'll make sure that we've got number 1 cab turned on. I think let's go for a shell on the bottom surface. Let's give it more thickness of 1mm. And then I think I'm also going to no, I'm going to keep that roof, I think. Okay, so we've got the shell. What we can do now is draw the cab side windows in. So if we look at these measurements, and we'll do that with a combination of pictures. Let's have a look at the cab windows. So we can see that we can start off with probably a basic rectangle and then put an angle in on the side here and then curve the corners round. Let's have the canvas on. That'll give us an idea of where the window is. Okay, so let's start a sketch on the side wall here. And we'll just put a rectangular shape in to start with. Okay, so height of the window is 25 inches and the length of the bottom is 41 inches. So if we jump into our internet here, 25 inches is height at 635mm. So we can define that height there. 635 divided by 148. And we said the length was 41. Which is 1041.4. Okay, so we've got 4.291 up on the height and 7.036 there. Okay. So this has got 50 inches from the end of the window to the back of cab. 50 inches is 1270. There. 1270. 8. Okay, so that's the position of our cab, which is massively different to what the plan is, but to me that plan window does look really, really big. Let's have a look at angle here, see if we've got anything with a draw. So it's got to have parallel lines with an angle. So yeah, okay. That's the line's got to be parallel. So if we draw a line from there up, make sure it doesn't snap to anything because you don't want it to. You need to now go and click escape. We can then select parallel line, that and that. So the two will match there then. Now if we look at the photographs, you can see that all four corners are curved, which is helpful. So we can just do the fillet, they look like they're all curved the same. So if we hold shift down as we select, I won't do it. Okay, so we're going to curve them. I think I'm going to go with that 1mm, it's just giving me the option of. Let's work with that. So we're going to curve from there to there, 1mm, and curve there to there, 1mm. Okay, so this warning here is because we've curved this, so this constraint no longer matches to the end here. Just try and work out whether that looks okay, if I'm happy with that. I'm wondering whether that measurement there is to the bottom corner, from sort of there to there, or from there to there. That one's definitely 50 inches, so that's fine. It's this gap here. Let's have a look. If we do a dimension from there to there, it's telling us it's about a foot. Does that look about 12 inches? Maybe not. Maybe it's a little bit smaller. It's difficult to tell, really. Need to work out the height here. Let's see if that's on the plan. That's why it's not constrained. So 44 inches, I think that says. 1117.6. So there. 1117.6 divided by 1.8. Either something's not right there. Yeah, something's not right there. That can't be 44 inches. Right, let's have a look, try and work it out from maybe this door. So we know that's 40 inches there. See if we've got any photos that sort of show. Yeah, look at that, that's exactly the same height. So let's try working that out. Let's try that at 40 inches. So that's 1016. 1016. That looks better to me. I think that measurement on the plan was wrong, because that looks like a much better position there. I think I'm going to go with that as my position. Now, again, looking at the plan, all the windows are identical. So what we can do to make this nice and simple, we could put these uprights in there. Yeah, let's do that. Let's do that. So let's have rectangle. I don't want the middle constraint. Although there's no measurements of them, I can see. There's no measurement of where it is. If we look at the picture, it's probably in the middle of the top, not bottom. So if we draw a rectangle, quite a large one, and if we use the midpoint constraint, constrain that to the midpoint of the other one, and then when we define this, I'm going to go for 0.5 millimeters in width. That's going to put this midpoint of this triangle, the rectangle, on the midpoint of that upper level. Then we can select those two panels and extrude them. And if we come all the way to the other side, that will cut all the way through the model. Okay, so what we've got here is, because we've got a millimeter shell thickness, this actually cuts slightly into the roof, which is fine. We can live with that. I'd rather not, but we can. The problem is, if we do anything about it, then it would show through the window. We could make the wall thickness smaller, but that would then risk the integrity of the model. So I'm going to live with that. You're not going to notice it again, but it's on the inside. We're looking at probably what? Let's measure it. Distance from there to there. 0.1 of a millimeter. So yeah, you're not going to notice that. Okay, so that's the cab window there done. We're now going to need to do the cab window on the front. Let's have a look at the picture here. Now, if we were to draw it directly on the front panel, when we extrude in, it will extrude in at an angle, and then your framing would be showing at the top, because you'd have the back of the panel showing downwards. So if we create an offset plane and extrude directly in a horizontal line into it, then you don't get that effect. So if we do an offset plane, we'll do it off of the back wall here, and then drag that beyond the front of the model. Click on OK. We can then draw directly onto that plane, which is then going to be based on directly onto that model. Okay, so if we look at here, we've got 17 inches either side. So if we could draw a rectangle like that, and then we want 17 inches, which is, let's go for 432 millimeters. So we can define the width. We're going to have to do from the corner to the corner. Say 432. So it's 432 divided by 148. 2919. Drag that back in. Define from there that corner to that corner as 2.919. 2.919. Okay, height wise, do we have any measurements for the height? So there's nothing on there. No. Okay, so let's look at the pictures. So that's pretty much going to the roof and only just above the crease, which we know is 35 inches. So I'm going to define the corner to corner. I'm going to give that a thickness of, let's go 0.5, and from there that's going to look okay. lower actually. Okay, and let's have a look. Are the corners all rounded? Yes, they are. So we can add that in. It's going to throw these constraints out. So I'm holding shift down as I select these corners. 1mm again looks okay. And then we're going to extrude this into the model. Okay, so we're going to have a similar issue with this top surface here. So all I'm going to do is edit that. I'm going to drag that back a little bit further so it actually cuts into the same profile that the top. There. Is that a hole all the way through? No, it's not. So we've now got that cutting into what is this profile as well now, and that's significantly cutting into it. We know we've got 1/2 mil thickness here, and when we go, we could potentially put the roof on there, which gives us more, and then we could fill these out if we needed to. Just wondering whether I want to go back and change that roof thickness now. Yeah, I think I might do. If I just scroll that back past the shell, in fact, just after the shell, we can extrude that roof upwards -0.5. Then when we jump forwards, we won't have or shouldn't have that effect. No. Does mean the roof's only 0.5 thick, which is fine. It can print that. It's absolutely fine. Yeah, that's probably the best option. Okay, so now we've got the windows drawn on there. If I show you what now happens, if we come back up to top level and jump to the end after the copy, you can see that the windows have automatically copied over, but now we've got this gaping hole which we can fill in afterwards, which isn't a problem. Okay, so I think having got to this point here, I'm going to finish that lesson. We've got our windows on, we've got our basic shape for the cabs. That was the objective of today's lesson, and we'll come back and we'll do a bit more work on that on the next one. So I hope you've enjoyed watching today's lesson. If you have, please comment below with any questions or queries or any suggestions you may have. Thanks for watching.